Have you ever promoted your pawn to a knight? This is very rare, of course. Usually you take the queen. But there are some situations where it's possible or even necessary to promote to a knight. There are some rook versus pawn endings where this is the case. There you sometimes have to promote to a knight to promote with check, and otherwise you get mated. But today we will look at a different situation. So now you can see the position on the Millennium chessboard. This was the game Jergus Pechac against Alexander Donchenko. So a very strong Slovenian grandmaster with the white pieces and a very strong German grandmaster with the black pieces. The game happened at a GM tournament in Budweis a few days ago. And yeah, it's white to move here. Both sides have very strong passed pawns. We have this passed pawn on c7 and this passed pawn on a3. And black is a pawn up. White is missing the g-pawn. That's also not so great for the king because there are some checks. But white can equalize here. Not more, but white can equalize and hold the position to a draw. If you like, you can pause the video and think about what would you play with white. It's not so easy here because you cannot push your pawn, for example, rook d8 with the idea to cover the c8 square is not so good because then black can simply take on c7 and the rook on f8 is protected by the king and white has nothing. So rook d8 is not a good move. What else? White has to stop the a pawn because black has a very simple idea, a2, a1. And the best move here is to trade the queens with, for example, queen to d3. Because if you trade the queens, then the rook will attack the pawn. For example, a2, rook a3, and white can take the a pawn. Black will take the c pawn. But then we have a rook ending with 3 pawns for black, 2 pawns for white, but everything on the king's side. And this is a theoretical draw. And yeah, of course, black can try to win, but usually it's not so difficult to hold this to a draw. So this was the best idea for white, to play queen d3 or even queen d2. But in the game, white played c8 and promoted to a knight. And this was a bit funny because why not a queen? I mean, if you promote here, then you would usually take the queen. I think, white decided to play this c8 move. And then he thought, okay, maybe it doesn't matter if he takes he chooses the queen or the knight, because black will take on c8 both pieces. So maybe he did it just for fun. But the point is that c8 with queen or with knight is not a good move at all. So that was a bit funny that he played c8 knight and it was the losing move. What can black do? The idea to play c8 was to bring the rook to a7 and then to take the pawn on a3 to exchange these pawns and then again hold the draw with 3 against 2 pawns on the king side. But here black has a very strong move. Black has the move queen to g6 check. And now the king has to move, king h2, and then the rook can take on c8. And why is this so strong? Now the queen covers the pawn on f7. I think that's what white missed in this position, that the queen covers the pawn on f7 with this intermediate check, because otherwise it was not possible to take on c8 with the rook, because f7 was hanging, but now it's protected. And yeah, the idea was to play rook a7, so white played rook a7. But now black has two pieces into the attack and played rook c2. And now black can play a2 in the next move, or of course the main idea is to take on f2. And white resigned at this point because there's no defense against a2, and rook takes f2. The queen can cover the pawn on f2, for example queen f3, but then simply a2, and black is 2 pawns up, and in the next move he will either attack the pawn on f2 or covers the square on a1 to push the pawn, and white can do nothing. White can give one check to the king, but just king h7, and the king is very safe there. And that's how Donchenko won this game. Let me know in the comments if you had a situation where you're promoted to a knight. And yeah, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video.